Thank you, Madam President. Members, it's with a heavy heart that I rise today to adjourn in the memory of a pillar and scholar in the field of urban planning, Professor Donald Shoup, who passed away in February, this past February at the age of 86. Professor Shoup has been known as one of the world's foremost experts in his field for over 20 years. The degree of the American Planning Association includes the publication of his book in 2005 as one of the most influential moments in modern planning history. He was born in Long Beach in 1938. He moved to Honolulu when he was 2 years old for his dad's post in the Navy. He used to say that since his first memory was the attack on Pearl Harbor, everything that came next seemed remarkably calm. Donald moved to New Haven to study at Yale, where he earned dual degrees in economics and electrical engineering, followed by his master's and eventual PhD in economics in 1968. The newly minted Dr. Shoup moved back to his home state and began working as a research economist at UCLA's Institute for Government and Public Affairs. And after 4 years as an assistant professor at the University of Michigan, he returned to UCLA, where he served for the next 50 years. Just as you'd expect from someone with 4 degrees from one of the most respected universities in the world, Professor Shoup devoted his scholarship to understanding the forces that underpin our urban system and what a better world and living situation might look like. In his first year as an associate professor at UCLA, he was researching the public finance and the idea of a land value tax when he came across a master's thesis paper that would send him down a path toward reshaping cities from San Diego to Stockholm. The thesis showed that LA County employees were almost twice as likely to drive to work alone compared to their federal counterparts working in the same LA Civic Center. What was the key differentiating factor? It was the availability of free parking. So over the coming years, Professor Shoup was seemingly the only person studying our parking policies and how we came to adopt them so widely. And the more he pulled the thread, the more he realized that our conception of parking and parking policy was built on guesses and assumptions. As he dug into the so-called science behind the minimum amount of free parking required for various businesses, he found calculations that he found precise, arbitrary, and sometimes ridiculous, including one rule in a place where they required 1 parking spot per every 2,500 gallons in a gym swimming pool, or 1 spot per 10 nuns in a convent, but 3 spots for every 4 clergymen. Even hospital parking based on the number of bassinets, as if the babies were the ones driving home. The revelation at the core of Professor Shoup's work was the fact that despite calling it free parking, the hyperabundance of paved and striped real estate designed solely for idle cars has a profound cost to housing, air quality, development, safety, traffic, and ecological damage. Donald's research found at least 990 square feet of off-street parking for each car in the United States, yet only 800 square feet of housing per person across the country, meaning that we devote substantially more land to our parked cars than we do to our citizens. Just in Los Angeles, over 200 square miles are sacrificed for parking across the city, the entire land area of San Francisco 4 times over. Yet a downtown LA concert hall requires 50 times more parking as a minimum than San Francisco allows as a max. Professor Shoup understood that the ideas and policies that don't seem to warrant a second thought are precisely the ones that sometimes need most to be reconsidered. In his words, we have expensive housing and free parking, we have our priorities the wrong way around. By simply devoting himself to the search for answers where others neglected to look, he started a movement and marked the beginning of a new way of thinking about how we structure our society, at least according to the APA's view of history. In his great book, The High Cost of Free Parking, and Professor Cabaldon was telling me that was a required reading of the planning commissioners that he worked with. In that book, The High Cost of Free Parking, Professor Shoup argues that for abolishing parking minima, charging fair market value for street parking, and investing those funds in the surrounding community. And he called on Shakespeare and Joni Mitchell and George Costanza, all with 1,300 footnotes in the book. So Professor Shoup was often alone in his early appeals for change, but his signature wit and talent as a lecturer elucidated our profound deference to parking for his students and readers, who would become more radicalized each time they noticed it. Eventually, a generation of passionate parking reform activists had named themselves the Shoupistas in Professor Shoup's honor, carrying on his work in government, academia, nonprofit advocacy in organizations such as the Parking Reform Network. Members, lest you think that any of us are safe from becoming Shoupistas, Donald's ideas have been winning over members of this legislature since getting parking cash out signed into law in 1992, most recently making Shoupistas of our former colleague, now member of Congress, Laura Friedman. Professor Shoup viewed policy through a lens of empathy and humanity, always remembering that systems and policies should be judged according to their impacts on real people, a perspective that is as vital as ever to our work in this body. Donald is remembered by his wife of nearly 60 years, Pat Shoup, as well as his brother Frank, his niece and nephew Allison and Elliot, his great nieces and great nephews, an entire community of Shoupistas who will continue to wear their moniker with pride. Colleagues, I ask that you join me in recognizing a lifetime of dedication, optimism, and public service by joining the Senate in his memory, Dr. Donald Shoup.